Welcome to Through the Eyes of a Lion, a Slingshot Media podcast that dives deep into the mindset and stories of individuals who faced the fiercest challenges and emerged victorious. I am joined as always by my brother, Coach Jay Smith.
What's up?
And this week we have a very special guest on the show, our good friend, Luis Cedeño.
Yeah.
How y'all feeling, fellas?
What's up, brother?
Feeling good. Honored to be here. Thank y'all for having me, man.
Of course, dog. Of course. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's we really enjoyed doing episode 1. We knew we wanted to have a lot more guests, and there's definitely a few more that we're gonna have on. But we came together, the three of us, through each other. I wouldn't have met Jay without you, and I've known you for quite a long time now. And last week, we're all bonded by sports. We're bonded by community, our shared faith, our brotherhood. But last week we talked about our love for the game and how it translates to the life and the scoreboard on the court and off the court. And I feel like all of us have come into each other's lives at different points for different reasons, including this podcast and all the various things we've done. But, I think I just wanted to talk about things that we've built with each other. And the most important thing for that is strength for me. And I wanted to ask y'all, first of all, I'll start with you, Coach Jay.
Okay.
How would you define strength in your own words?
Strength for me is not how much you can lift in the weight room or anything like that. It's pretty much how long you can continue doing whatever the challenge may be and not give up. I know it sounds a little superhero-ish, but it's the truth. Because we have Coach Eric, that's a part of our legacy hoop staff, that can lift like 6 plates with no problem. And I've seen him eat a horse. That's strength. That's not the type of strength that I give credit to. The people that can endure situations for a long period of time would be my version of strength.
Yeah, for me, I've always kind of had to redefine strength because, you think about it, like you're saying, the weight room, throwing plates, all that. I've always been small,
Mm-hmm.
on the smaller side. I was so when I think about strength, I have to think about other, like mental strength and resiliency and things like that. So I think the biggest thing I think about is how strength grows and develops.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about hitting the weight room, it's like a progression.
Yeah.
So I think about it kind of on a scale like that it's always climbing. You're always pouring into it, and just that's kind of how I think about it.
Okay, so your version of it is progression, and then my version of it would be more so of not letting go. So yours is moving forward, and for me it would be holding on. So Nate, what would your version of strength be?
I think for me, strength is a little bit in the middle. It's never giving up, but also knowing where you fit in any given situation, whether it was a school project back in the day or whether you're at work every day or in your relationship. It's knowing where you can be your strongest and plugging and playing where you feel like that's going to be the best benefit.
Okay.
And in everything, there's things that I'm not as good at that I feel like my partner or whoever might be better at putting in their strengths.
Okay.
And for me, it's going to be relying on what I know the best and what I feel like is the best.
Gotcha.
And that really just kind of depends on day to day and the situation. So we're going to talk about a variety of things, and strength can mean a lot of things to whoever, is speaking to it at the time. I think when I think of strength, firstly, I think of mental strength. And when I think of mental strength, I think of resilience.
Okay.
And resilience to me is really just, the toughness to overcome adversity. And toughness can have a lot of different definitions, but I think for me, when we talk about sports or life in general, I always think about how do we develop that mental resilience. And when we're faced with setbacks or failures, how do we overcome them? And how do we, especially when we're working with the kids, helping them on the court as well, how do we help them to develop that mental resilience, and you can probably speak to it pretty well as a coach. I don't know if you have any strategies that have worked well for you.
Shoot, throw that kid in there. Throw that kid in there and see how they respond, and then you walk them through their response, and you kind of figure out who the kid is individually, and then you kind of set the bar and give them an impression of what that trait and quality looks like. So, for instance, last week, I've been hammering the kids on trying to be better at not just playing but studying, basketball and becoming, who you are and what there is to be. And so a couple of the kids use players like Giannis, Kobe, Anthony Edwards, and they all have different strengths. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad you want to be these people, but like, do you ever put yourself in those situations to, act on what you see? You know what I mean? Instead of just watching from afar. So I think that's one of the things that I can say that I do pretty well of, is like putting the kid in a situation, and then when they're in the situation, like hand by hand, walk them through it, so that way they have like a verbal understanding, an acting understanding, and like a visual understanding as well.
Yeah.
And I think for both of y'all, I would be interested to hear if y'all could share a moment in your lives in general on when you feel like your mental strength made all the difference in achieving something. Mm-hmm. It could be in sports. Luis, I know you've played sports, all your life, and you're somewhat of a legendary Sunday football player, yes, a Sunday league player that we aspire to be. So can you share a moment where you felt like, oh, if I wasn't, mentally strong in that moment, I might not have achieved what I needed to?
Yeah, so for me, in addition to being a Sunday Rec League legend, I'm a pediatric nurse, specifically in rehab. So I work a lot with kids who have been in, some kind of accident or had something happen to where they go from like where they're at to, they have new obstacles and challenges that they need to face. So if you want to like learn about strength, and like mental strength, like every day that I'm at work, I'm seeing it in these kids who, they're just having to relearn how to strengthen their bodies and their minds to get as close to doing what they were doing before, or, like getting back or even past what their baseline was. So like, I learn a lot about mental strength from that and from them, and from seeing like the amount of work and dedication it takes to do something that maybe before was like quite simple, like brushing your teeth or like something like that typically we don't think about, and just like the commitment and time it takes to do that.
Yeah,
relearning. And I mean, there's a lot of day, it's like very challenging to get through that kind of environment without having very, very intentional like mental strength. So I draw a lot of it from the people around me. So whether that be like the kids and kind of like drawing from their spirit and their fortitude and strength, or like the nurses around me who are like pouring their heart into, helping build up strength, or like the therapists or people who are like committing their time and their life to strengthen people, like drawing a lot from that, and that energy just really like builds on itself. And then also, like internally, like it's something where every morning you have to have that intentional mindset of like, I'm going into this setting or situation, I need to be bringing my strongest, most positive, joyful self. Or sometimes joy is not what people like. Sometimes people are like, hey, this sucks. Like, yeah. I need to just like, I need you to not be all happy and go lucky, and I need you to just sit here and like let me cry, or like let me. So it's a lot of self-awareness and awareness of like, what does this person need in this specific situation. So it kind of goes like with what you were saying, like thinking about like in like medical terms, I guess it's like we assess every day strength, like literal strength assessments of like, push your feet against my hands, let me see like how strong you are. If you're stronger than you were yesterday, if your left foot is stronger than your right foot, if your right arm, squeeze my fingers. Like every day, every 4 hours, you're assessing what is your strength like. Are you stronger than you were 4 hours ago? Are you weaker than you were? Is it because you were just been in therapies all day and like you need your rest? And so it's like, that's kind of really helped with my mindset as well, because it's you're constantly checking in. constantly checking in and assessing, like, where are you at? Where am I at? Where are we at? Like, where is your family at? And it's just you're always checking in. So I think a lot about like pulling that mental strength from just constantly like that self-reflection or the outward reflection of just every few hours, hey, checking in, where we at.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people don't even get the chance now, especially becoming an adult, like being a full-blown adult now, right? Being a full-blown adult now, you really don't even get the chance to assess yourself because you're so busy assessing other situations to make sure that they were before or where they are supposed to be before. And I know we talk about kids a lot, but like just becoming grown adult men, you know, and women at this age, you know, for whoever is taking the time to listen to this, please make sure you have enough time to assess for yourself too, because one of the things that I've learned is that it's hard for you to be strong and be there for somebody else if you're not even ready to be strong and you don't even know what's going on with you. And that was a place that you asked me about a situation where being strong came into part. And when me and Lou met, I was going to Bible study with them, and I was, you know, there. I felt like I was being a good friend, showed up to all the events, and nobody knew that I was going through a pretty rough time, you know, with the previous situation, and I was trying to help pour out to other people with a broken and almost empty cup. And actually, one of the nights where I couldn't be strong no more, Lou pulled up on me. I called him. That was the night I beat him by 80 in 2K.
I was being nice, man. He needed a win.
No,
he needed a win.
I definitely needed a win.
Nah, but I was getting mad. Man, I'm here trying to help you. I was getting mad, bro.
No, for sure, but I didn't even get it. That was one of the first times as an adult where like I went months and months and months of just taking stuff and just get whatever. I just kept taking hits, and I didn't have time to assess what was going on with me on the inside from trying to help everybody else and make sure my environment was good. That like it took me to break down for me to be like, okay, like from here on out, if I can't be strong for nobody else if I'm not strong enough for myself. And so I completely am very parallel with that point of assessment, because like now, it don't even need to. I check, hey, Holy Spirit, what's up? How am I feeling right now? Like, I had those conversations with Jesus every day to make sure that like that strength is there, so that way I can successfully have these conversations with these young men and women and make sure that we're making a positive impact in their life. And then not even with them, just with you guys, right? Having conversations, hey bro, I need help with this, and etc., to make sure that I'm good, so that way I can help you with a clear mind and clear heart, and not pour something dirty or unclean into whatever you need. So yeah, I think that's a big part of strength too. Good stuff, bro.
Yeah, y'all tied my next topic into it perfectly, and I think all of us can admit that it's hard to admit our vulnerabilities sometimes, especially as men. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the reasons why we started this podcast is we really wanted to, as men, talk about things that we don't generally talk about, and Luis knows this, and our other brother Ike, who we all bonded together over this, is that at least for me, before I met them and you, I didn't have a ton of male friends that I could feel very vulnerable talking about things that we're told to keep hold up or you know, enrage in other ways.
Be strong about
right.
it.
Be strong about it, be quiet about it, and I think that comes out a lot in various ways. And I think vulnerability can be a source of strength in times like that you mentioned, and in times where you can know what your vulnerabilities are and when you need support and when you can handle it, because in that moment you might have needed Lou to pull up on you and beat you by 80 lose by 80. Yeah. And that's what he was there for in your time of need. So other than like things like that, what other like powerful things have y'all experienced that have helped you learn about yourself that made you want to open up more? Because I feel like for me, meeting with Luis and Ike and you, and just having other men being like, hey, how are you doing? Like, how are things going? Mm-hmm. And they could just be asking about what you ate for lunch or something, but it's still like an avenue to talk about thing. So what other experiences have y'all had in other relationships where you feel like opening up emotionally really helped you in your things?
I mean, I'll go ahead and start off with it first. I was blessed to be introduced to men in my life that did not have a crab in a barrel mentality. You know, like, okay, cool, I'm glad you're doing good, but you can't be better than me. Having men in my life, like I talked about Brent Allen, Coach Larry, my dad, my Uncle Herman, you know, like I can call my Uncle Red, who's in California. Like I have good people in my life that, like, when they ask me a question about how am I can tell them truthfully how I am, and they can give me real side and real inside story about, like, the moves that they've made to get through. And so, due to their vulnerability, their vulnerability of what their lives are and how they are, it helped me be vulnerable for other people. So I literally am not like a mirror, but I'm very transparent with what's going on with me, so that way I can know how to help others. Because when I was down and out, those men literally were vulnerable and transparent with me to help me be who I am today. And their example is actually what led me to, you know, be that transparent and they're vulnerable with other situations.
Yeah, and like that chain carried on because, like, your vulnerability and, like, transparency and kind of like you're saying, trying to be like a mirror, like, affected me and my ability or desire to be like that. So it's really cool that, like,
I appreciate that.
You had people pouring into you that kind of made you want to be that way,
mm-hmm.
and then I come along, and then you are able to be that for me, and then, you know, like, I'm able to be that for Nate, and you know, like, kind of vice versa. So I think a lot about how much, like, how, I guess, contagious it can be, because you spend a lot of your life and time. It sounds like not you, which is amazing, but like for me, like it's like this vulnerability. It's like this big scary and like it's this big scary monster where you're thinking, like, something bad's gonna happen. Like, once it's out there, and people can view me as, like, weaker,
right,
quote unquote, than I want to seem. But then when you actually let the walls down and kind of have that weight lifted off your shoulders, it's like, wait a minute, what was I all scared about? Like, because I feel so much better now,
bro. It ties in because you're in the medical field. You understand, like, it's easier for you to be better if you tell the doctor the truth.
Yeah.
If they ask you questions and you don't tell them the truth, you're literally prolonging you being in a healthier position, right? So when they ask me questions, I did not fake it at all. I'm like, yeah, bro, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
So either you're going to help me or I'm going to find somebody else that's going to help me.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we talk about spirituality a lot. I mean, I learned that from my favorite person in the Bible is David. He has 100 and something chapters of him being real rap raw with God. Like, this is where I'm at. I did this. Yep, I killed one of my greatest soldiers to be with his wife. Like, I know you're not with me right now, but he had several situations. Like, even when he slayed Goliath, like, he was like, sure, I mean, I can pick up a sword, but, like, you want me to use a rock and a slingshot? Like, that's what I got to do. So even having examples back then of being vulnerable and having those conversations, it led me to be like, okay, cool. Like, tell the doctor exactly what you need so that way you can be at full strength. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mentioned it on the last podcast, and I think a lot of men can relate. I don't think I really, other than y'all as my friends, really opened up until, you know, I fell in love with my partner Alexandria, and, like,
aww,
I know, so
really
cute, so
man.
cheesy,
really cute.
But, like, I think a lot of it was like, and a lot of great women are like this, is that they're like, no, I'm not leaving till you tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to let it out because I can tell it's festering, and you need to, you know, whatever it is, I'm going to be here with you on the other side. And you, as men, I feel like once we get them out, we're like, ugh, that was weird. But then you get it out, and then the situation comes up in our lives together, and you're like, okay, how are we going to handle it based on what you told me and what we talked about? You're like, oh, okay, now I got to actually put it to work, and you got to be vulnerable to do that. And Jay, again, I don't know, I know you didn't see my notes, but I feel like you saw them, because my next topic, and you already mentioned it, was how our spirituality ties into our, emotional strength. Gotcha. And I've definitely been, and me and Luis have talked about this at length, my spirituality has wavered over the years. I've had various, interactions and relationships with God and the church. And I think there are times where my spiritual beliefs have really helped me navigate challenging times. And I'm interested to hear from y'all if you could share a moment or two where, you feel like your faith or your spiritual strength gave you that courage to face something crazy.
Gonna be a little lengthy, so I'm gonna let Luke.
All right, let Jay cook later.
Wow. All right, I'm glad you let me go first. I follow it up I would say I went through a season kind of during college where I was very distant faith-wise, and it was because of how, I guess, like, representatives, and I mean, I still go through this in waves here and there with, like, a lot of things going on, but with how, like, representatives of faith and Jesus speak or, like, can treat others. There's obviously, like, the big thing with, like, hypocrisy, like, within the faith that is kind of, like, always a looming thing that, I mean, I think it's easy to fall victim to or think about, but I spent a lot of time during that time of my life. I was, like, directly associating these people who, like, claim Christ are saying or doing these things. So my subconscious mind would say, that must mean that's what, like, Christ stands for. That's, like, what Jesus stands for. So, like, I don't want any part of that right now. And it wasn't until I, like, separated that like, I'm like, directly attaching imperfect, like, broken people to a, like, perfect savior entity, and I'm, like, distorting the two. And so when I really just sat down and kind of went all in on, like, okay, who is Jesus actually? Not people who, like, call on his name or use his name for whatever, saying, like, the man, the Spirit himself, Jesus, what is he actually like? Like, how did he spend his time? Who did he spend his time with? Who did he spend his time rebuking? Mm-hmm. And thinking about that, I got so much closer to Jesus, and that, like, strengthened my faith, and it, just kind of, like, my drive for the type of person that I want to be is, like, I want it to be directly related to who Jesus is and who he seems to prioritize. Like the poor and the vulnerable, who he seems to be drawn towards, and just, like, that humility. And so that, I mean, that's a big reason why I'm in the field that I'm in, and try to kind of, like, have the I guess, like, the impact that I, like, try to have. But it was really that, like, just kind of disconnecting the whole, like, I'm making these assumptions about, these subconscious assumptions about how God and Jesus are based on how imperfect people are, like, portraying him, as opposed to going directly to the source and, like, learning and figuring out, like, who and what do these entities stand for. And just trying to stick to that has really helped me kind of, like, remain strong in my faith, and be able to try to, like, be drawn towards what Jesus is drawn to, like, call out and speak out against what he speaks out against, and the way certain, like, people are treated or seen or viewed or othered, or whatever it might be, like the poor, the weak, the disabled, like, whatever it might be, just, like, really trying to understand who he's drawn to, and kind of where that strength comes from. So
gotcha. Okay. So, heavy disclaimer for those out there are listening. This isn't a religious podcast at all. Like, this isn't something that would be on your Sunday top charts. Like, that's not our goal. But whoever you decide to believe in, as long as I always stress, especially with our legacy program, we say believe in something, right? I believe in Jesus Christ. That's me. That's who I am. But as long as you have the ability to believe in something higher than who you are, then more power to you, because we're not trying to force that on you. Just want to just put that out there. But,
For sure. Thank
but
you.
no, you're good. You're good. And I just want, because I want people to still feel it's also still a decision. You know what I mean. At the end of the day, but with that being said, for me, like I said, I'm Team Jesus 100% of the day, and that's because of what happened with me. I got to a point to where I had nothing else but to know that it was Him that stepped into my life, right? Because me as an individual, Jordan Smith Jr., I want to be successful. I'm driven to, be the best that there ever was in whatever I'm doing. There's like a competitive spirit about me, and it came from a point of like always wanting to be like, maybe the light of everything, or like in control, right? And so God would take me places, and then I would be like, okay, cool, we made it. All right, God, I'll holler at you a little bit, and then like Jordan would step in instead of like letting him continuously like flow through who I was. And so once I got to the position, now it just started off like I got a job in insurance right when the pandemic started. Cool, happy I got the job, just bought a Benz, I'm feeling great, you know what I mean? Jordan stepped in, right? And it just went dry. Like nothing happened. Gratefully, my uncle stepped in and helped out, but like in the middle of a pandemic, I was making like, nothing at all. Stressed out, having anxiety about not knowing where things were going to come next, and etc. To the point to where like I wasn't even eating at one point in time. Like that's how much anxiety I would have. And one day I remember sitting on my balcony, and I was just like, you know what? All right, you got me. If you want me to believe that you are real, show me. So he's like, okay, go get your Bible. So I grabbed my Bible. I sat out there. Now, we in Texas. It's the summer. It's 90-something degrees outside. Sun is shining bright. And where my apartment is sitting, right, I'm on the back end of the apartment. So there's no wind or anything coming that way. So I'm sitting there. It's about a minute. And I'm like, okay, I'm waiting. And then sure enough, a breeze blew, and it literally turned my Bible from where it was to Philippians, like a chapter in Philippians. And the chapter of Philippians said, like Philippians 4, at the end, everybody says, like, through, I can do all things through Christ. It wasn't that part. It was the part that says, whether I have a little or a lot, like, I will always be thankful. That's what Paul was talking about. And I was like, you know what? That's what I forgot. I forgot that whether I have a little or a lot, like Jesus is still, like, the head of my life. And that gave me enough strength to say, well, one, ain't no wind coming from nowhere over here, so it had to be God, because I couldn't do it. And then two, to also realize and say that, like, I'm gonna try it your way, and I had enough strength to like put my own selfish ambitions aside and live for a bigger purpose than having a big house, having a big car, having a ton of money, buying anything that I wanted in XYZ. And so that's how my spirituality tied into that strength, because I had enough strength to put myself aside and do something bigger, have a bigger purpose, and potentially help people just be happy, man. Because I know we're talking about strength right now, but anxiety, bro, not being able to sleep at night is one of the worst things that can ever happen to. And I don't wish that on nobody, but like now being able to sleep peacefully through the night and know that everything is taken care of, I strongly, like, that is one of the things that like I'm very, very grateful for.
Yeah, and it helps you show empathy for other people, right? And I think if everybody in our world was able to just live it's easier said than done, but like if they're able to live their lives with like just a shred more of just put yourself in someone's shoes, depending on what they're going through, just feel like our whole perspective would be changed, and we would be a lot more empathetic. And I think, Jay, that probably helped you, become the leader that you are, because I think a lot of the people that you lead would be shocked to hear that about you, because you display that strength, and that's a lot to carry, because what you don't see.
Bro, it's all Jesus right there. Because, man, and it took a lot of humility and time for me to be the leader that I am today. Yeah. So that way, like, it's now that's a way of life for me to be that way. And whether I'm the person in the front or the person in the back, I'm still gonna give 100% of like, you know, who I am.
So how do you balance like being empathetic and also being stern and decisive when you need to speak out? Like, oh, I can't just be quiet about that kid, you know, smoking the layup because he had a bad day, or you know, whatever it is that you might have heard happen before the practice, but you still want him to get better at his craft. Like, how do you balance that?
I balance that with a change of perspective. Because sometimes having expectations of you are viewed as a bad thing, and it's been given a bad rap. And if you change your perspective of expectations are set on you because of how amazing you are as a person with whatever abilities you have, instead of a burden, then the situation becomes a lot better. So whenever I'm coaching and bad situations happen, I do it from a place of, I know you're created as an amazing person, and it comes from a place of love instead of a place of like, how could you do that? You know what I mean? And it's not a judgment place. Once again, I'm gonna use this word a million times in this spot. It's a place of correction. You know what I mean? Judgment and correction are totally two different things. And I think once we change the perspective from judgment and expectation to correction and expectation, then, you know, that's when that growth and that situation can be displayed correctly.
Yeah, and I think, Luis, you can probably relate. You know, now that you're a big boss manager out on the nursing floor,
Hardly,
like how do you? I'm just gassing you up. How you feel like as a leader you can show like strength without being too harsh or unapproachable? Because I've joked around with Alexandria and others that I've never met somebody that has all of his coworkers come out to your birthday party, come out for a movie. I'm like, these people ride so hard for Luis, and so do I. And we're bonded by that, because it means you have something about you where you're able to lead them and be their friend. And I'm sure you have to be harsh on them at some point. So how do you show that strength without turning them away?
Yeah, that's definitely like a learning curve, striking that balance. But I think a lot about, so much of it is done like pre-work. You know what I mean? So like, let's say you have a situation where some kind of like coaching or correction or whatever it might be done. Like, I'm really big on, I have been putting in the work the last couple of years of like trying to invest in these relationships and like show you that I care about you as a person, and I think highly of you, and I think that you're intelligent and you know, just capable of greatness or whatever it might be, or like, you know, you're like I try to, you know, like have that, so that when it does come time to have that, you know, difficult conversation or, you know, that correction or that coaching or whatever it may be, this is the goal. This is what I'm like hoping I'm able to express, that there's like no doubt of where it's coming from, and that it's coming from a place, because I've shown you over time that I care about you. So when I'm having this conversation, it's not like oh, I'm judging you, or like I think you're stupid, or like, oh, you're not good enough. It's like, you already know. You already don't have to question how I feel about you, because I'm trying to be there for you leading up, or I'm trying to be, you know, like a good listener or whatever it might be, kind of leading up to where you just don't have to doubt where that comes from. And I actually, the leader I had before I took this position at work was really, really good about that. So that's something I really learned about her, is that like when it was time to have that conversation, like I made some mistake at work or had some oversight or whatever it might be, and she would have to have that difficult conversation with me, someone else could come in and say the exact same words, but like it would feel different, because I'm like, why are you talking sideways to me right now? Like, with her, it's like, no, I have no doubt about your intentions right now. Right. Like, I know that you care about me as a person. I know that you think highly of me. And so I know that when it's time to have this conversation, I don't have to worry about like, oh, you think less of me now, or, you know. And so she was a really good example of that. I have other role models in my life who have really like invested and poured into me and kind of like taught me that. And so it's really just kind of drawing from that and how like that has made me feel, like you said, that empathy. Like I've been in this situation where someone's coaching me or correcting me about something, and I've been made to feel lesser than or stupid or dumb in situation A at this job or whatever, and then in situation B, this job, I feel again exact same conversation, but because of the pre-work, and I know that you're invested in me, you're not just like, coming in hot. Like it feels different.
Yeah.
And so I try to like take that in, and then spread that out.
That's dope.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can only imagine. I've only watched TV shows, but what nurses have to, the environment that y'all work in. There are times where you got to probably yell at each other, and then when it's all done and you've successfully done the job, you got to go back to your work and be friends afterwards, and they have to know like, oh, that yelling at me, it wasn't just. Similar to coaching, it wasn't that is he mad at me or is he, taking, just disappointment with me, but he, is trying to get a point across, and hopefully you will.
And trying to keep these kids safe. Like we have the same goal.
Yeah.
Thankfully, in the pediatric world, it's a lot, like the environment is a lot nicer than it is in like the adult world or the critical care. Like I work in more of an acute care. So man, there's some areas of nursing where I just can't even imagine how difficult it is to do that kind of stuff. But thankfully, I'm blessed to be in one where it's like a good, positive environment. So but again, that took work. Like the leadership before me kind of like created this environment, and the nurses are like, it's just an environment has been created to where it's comfortable to have conversations that in other environments would not be comfortable and would be more difficult and feel more personal and those kinds of things. So
I would imagine the kids are much better patients than the adults.
Way better. If
I listen to y'all more and follow directions and everything. All right, so I want to go on to our last topic, and I'm gonna reinforce the brand here, but it goes well with the last topic, is talking about the legacy of strength. And you mentioned your former boss, who sounds like they left a legacy of strength for you to carry on, and they were a good role model for you. And I'm sure Jay thinks about this more than others, but when you think about leaving a legacy, like what kind of strength do you want to be remembered for? And we didn't talk a whole lot about physical strength, but because we talked about a lot of other great things, but of all the strengths that you have, what do you want to be remembered for?
I promise you, when I say this is not cliche at all. I want the strength to be remembered as the best husband that my wife can ever ask for. Yeah, you're gonna say but no, and this is gonna be, I'm being vulnerable talking about this. My family comes from, like, on both sides, come from a long history of men, that besides my dad that have had, multiple wives, multiple kids, and etc. And so, I mean, my family's done good in business in some aspect, in sports and accolades, and are talented people. But I want to be known as a strong husband, because seeing my dad be with my mom for 28, for that long, almost 30 years, and I want to continue that legacy, so that way, like, my last name brand of men, can be, labeled as people that really held on and stayed strong and changed the lives of, the opposite side of their family, and etc. So above all, yes, I love legacy hoops. I love, what I do and the people that I connect with, but the strongest part of me, I wants to be left for Nishay and say, like, I know, no doubt in my mind, he gave me his 100% best. I may not be perfect, but for sure, I'm giving you my best, girl. I promise.
What was your answer, Bill Louise?
I think strength in, I don't know. I kind of want the strength narrative to be flipped in a way, because before we kind of talked about how, like, growing up, or how it used to be, strength is all about, like, how you appear, and a lot of times that has to do with, like, pushing things down, like having like appearing strong and, like, having that steadiness to you. But I think about, I mean, I'm a softie, you know. I'm a sensitive boy, and I would love for that to be seen as a strength. You know, like, being in touch. Trying to be in touch with, you know, like your softer side and like your gentle side, you know, like being a gentle man, like a gentleman.
So you want that strong but empathetic, yeah.
Strong but empathetic, but that to be seen, like, you know, like that is strength. You know, you're able to encourage others. You're able to, you know, push other people forward and like help people feel seen and heard. So I think for me, that's like, I really want people to feel seen and heard. And I think I want that to be where my strength is, and or like that legacy to be, is that, you know, people, when they're around me or with me, that I go out of my way to try to make sure that they feel like they matter, or they belong, or they like are worthy of love and strength and all those things. And so, I mean, y'all both were so cute talking about your women. I gotta talk about I gotta shout Allie out as well. Like, I mean, yeah, none of that would be, man, like I'm just such a completely different person now than I was before I was with her. I'm so much more in touch with my emotions. I still have a lot of work to do. I definitely still suppress things and like push things down and ignore things, and I'm working on it. I really am. I don't want to sit here and act like I'm this like super just like emotionally intelligent, in touch person when I'm still like working hard at it. But yeah, having those people around you, especially like a partner who really pulls that out of you, is a big part of it as well.
I'm gonna tell you the truth, bro. You leaving a really good legacy. What you just said that you do, like that is one of the things that I think drawn you to actually being a real. Like I got a lot of acquaintances and people that I talk to, but my list of friends is pretty. It's not as lengthy as people think it is.
Yeah,
you know, people I really call friends, but like you do an excellent job of making people feel like seen and heard and comfortable. So you're leading a really good. Yeah, your flowers right now, bro. You're leading a really good legacy. Yeah, so keep it up for sure.
Yeah, and everyone says that. Jay's not just saying that. And I think for me, it's you know, like when I said that you and Ike and Jay are some of the few first men that have shown the path to being vulnerable and just talking about things. I think that's probably my biggest legacy that I've thought about, especially with the younger generation, just knowing that the challenges that we went through, they're going through, that they're continuing to deal with as this world continues to get harder to live in. It's just that, you know, it's okay to talk about these things that are normally tough to talk about. And I was really proud of me and my sisters. There's a big group that my family and my parents are a part of these, you know, Indian Catholics who were just always bonded together, done things together. And one of the parents, their son, died by suicide. And he was younger than us. And, you know, I'm not saying anything that he could have talked about would have prevented it, but I think regardless, we wanted to open a dialogue for the younger kids who are like 15 to 25, who I know between 15 and 25, I didn't talk to anybody about anything. We were just talking about like sports, you know, probably for the whole time. And I think we had a get together where it was no expectations, no one's parents are here. Just come to our house, and like we're not gonna have any, even though a lot of us are over 21, we're not gonna have any alcohol. Like it's just gonna be a hangout. We're gonna make pizzas. We're gonna talk about whatever we talk about and play games, because we might not have talked about anything deep that night at all. But hopefully one day, if somebody needs to, they know that there's a comfortable environment there.
That's that exact pre-work I'm talking about. Like
exactly.
That's planting seeds. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks y'all for joining us here in episode 2 of Through the Eyes of a Lion.
I think we did some really good stuff today.
We did.
Thank y'all for having me. I'm honored.
No, we appreciate it. Thanks for being our first guest.
Of course.
Yes. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate everyone listening. We'll be back for episode 3 soon. Take care.